Good morning, everyone. Today we will continue to talk about circuits. Yeah, last class we talk about the Kirchhoff's junction law, Kirchhoff's loop law, and the series circuits and the parallel circuits, and yeah, we talk about all these things. And today we will focus on also focus on circuits and talk about more about circuits and if the circuits involve some capacitors, what will it be? Yeah, and then if yeah, last class we talk about some basic simple circuits. If the circuits become more complicated, what how can we analyze this circuit? Yeah, and also we know in our body, yeah, in our nervous system, there are some electric things. Yeah, we will talk about all these things in this class. Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah, okay. Let's continue to talk about circuits. And yeah, we know in last class we talk about this chapter's goal, like to understand the fundamental physical principles that govern electric circuits. You can see here, I put a picture. This is a fish called L. Yeah, and actually this fish it has like some electric circuits inside his body. Yeah, inside its body, and also for every animals. Yeah, including our human, in the nervous system, it has electric things. Yeah, so that's the reason why I put this image here. Okay, let's continue today's class. Okay, sorry, I think I just this is 20. Yeah, yeah. And for today's class goal, firstly, let's review Kirchhoff's laws, the junction law and the loop laws. And also let's talk about the series and the parallel circuits. Yeah, this is what we talk about in last class. And then we will learn more complex circuits. And next, we will explore capacitors in parallel and series. And after that, we will try to understand the RC circuits. What is RC circuits and how to analyze this? And finally, we will study electricity in the nervous system. Yeah, this is what we will focus on in this class. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, we talk about the Kirchhoff's law in last class and also the class before last class. Yeah, this is the we talk about in the class before last class Kirchhoff's junction law. Yeah, we learn it in chapter 22. It states that the total current into a junction. Yeah, you can see into a junction, and must equal the total current leaving the junction. Yeah, this is Kirchhoff's junction law. And yeah, this is a result of charge and current conservation. Yeah, this is a Kirchhoff's junction law. When you analyze the current in a circuit, and just use this rule and just focus on junctions. Yeah, every junctions focus on that. Okay, and yeah, this is Kirchhoff's loop law. Like for any circuit, if we add all of the potential differences around the loop formed by the circuit, the sum must be zero. Yeah, this is Kirchhoff's loop law, and yeah, this one. All of the potential difference around the loop formed by the circuit, the sum must be zero. And this one, VI, the potential difference I is the potential difference of the ith component of the loop. Yeah, we talk about this in last class. And then we talk about the series and the parallel circuits. Yeah, you can see there are two possible ways that you can connect the circuit. Series and parallel circuits, yeah, have very different properties. Yeah, yeah, those kind of circuit, we call it a series. All the components in the circuit are connected in series. Yeah, if they are connect direct to each other with no junction in between. And this is parallel. Yeah, it's just like a there are some components in the circuit, they connect with each other in parallel. Yeah, we call this kind of circuit parallel circuits. And we also talk about how to calculate the resistor in series and how to calculate the resistors in parallel. Yeah, and in series, you just add them together, and in parallel, and the equivalent resistance should equal R1, R2, and then the power -1. Yeah, this is what we talked about last class. Okay, and today, let's talk about more complex circuits. Yeah, and you can see like combinations of resistors can often be reduced to a single equivalent resistance through a step-by-step application of the series and parallel rules. Yeah, we can like if there are many resistors, like more than 2, 3, yeah, you can like reduce the resistors in a circuit using a single equivalent resistance. Yeah, uh, there are two special cases. If there are two identical resistor in series and the equivalent resistance equal 2R, yeah, because you can see if you just connect 2R in series, like the equivalence resistance is 2R. It's obvious. Am I right? If you connect two identical resistor in parallel, yeah, the equivalent resistance is half R. Yeah, you can see it's also easy to understand. Here is R, and then here is R, and then you can see if you parallel connect them, which means the equivalent resistance is this one, and here it is R2 power -1 equal half R. That makes sense to you? Yeah. This is two special cases. Okay, and let's talk about this example. How does the brightness of bulbs change when a switch is closed? Yeah, you can see here. Initially, the switch in the figure is open. Yeah, like this switch is open. And bulbs A and B are equally bright. Yeah, we talk about that. Yeah, because those three are identical. Yeah, which means the resistor is the same. So, and the current is also the same in this series circuit at the beginning. And bulb C is not glowing because it is disconnect. Yeah, there is no current through here. And how does the brightness of C then compare to that of A and B? Yeah. Sorry, I just missed one sentence. What happens to the brightness of A and B when the switch is closed? Yeah, when the switch is closed. And how does the brightness of C then compare to that of A and B? Assume that all bulbs are identical. Yeah, let's talk about this one. Actually, we will reduce series and parallel combination of bulbs to their equivalent resistors. Yeah, we talk about how to calculate the equivalent resistor in last class. We assume that the bulbs are identical with resistance R. Yeah, we can then use the equivalent resistors rules for identical resistors. Yeah, actually, you can see initially, before the switch is closed, bulbs A and B are in series. Bulb C is not part of the circuit. A and B are identical resistors in series, so their equivalent resistance is 2R. Yeah, we just talked about it. And the current from the battery is this one. Yeah, this is the EMF for this battery, and this is the equivalent like a resistance. Yeah, so the current should equal this one, and then you put here, and you can see this is the current from the battery at the beginning. Yeah, this is the initial current in bulbs A and bulbs B, so they are equally bright. Yeah, because the current is the same, the resistor is the same, and then closing the switch. Yeah, if you close the switch, places bomb B and C in parallel with each other. Yeah, and we know the equivalent resistance of these two B and C identical resistor in parallel is we write it R B plus C equal half R. Yeah, we just talked about it just now. Yeah, the equivalent resistance of B and C is in series. Yeah, with A. So hence then the total resistance of the circuit is I think it is also plus A. Yeah, the total resistance is the total. Yeah, it is equal. This one is R, and these two like a parallel, and the equivalent resistor is this one. And so which means the total is R plus half R is this one is 3 divided 2R is 1.5 R. Yeah, and then this is the current leaving the battery. Yeah, the EMF is the same thing, and the equivalents are changed to this one. And then this is the current after closing the switch. And then let's compare. This is 2R. This is before, and this is after. You can see this one greater than this one. Am I right? Yeah. So which means closing the switch decreases the total circuit resistance, and then increase the current leaving the battery. That makes sense to you. Which means the A because the current increase and the R is the same thing. So which means for the A and the brightness will increase. That makes sense to you? Yeah. And all the current from the battery passes through bond B. So A increases in brightness when the switch is closed. The current I after A, it will split into it will split at this junction. And bombs B and C have the equal resistance, so the current divided equally. So the current is this one. Yeah, because the current here is 2 divided, you can see here. This one, 2 divided 3, and then it divided to same current. So which means one is third, this one. Am I right? So which is less than I before? The before is 2R. Yeah, this one is smaller than this one. Yes, thus B decreases in brightness when the switch is closed. With the switch closed, bulbs B and C are in parallel, so bulb C has the same brightness as bulb B. Does it make sense to you? Yeah. Okay, let's assess this problem. Our final results make sense. Initially, bumps A and B are in series, and all of the current that goes through bump A goes through bump B. So when we add bump C, the current has another option. It can go through bump C. This will increase the total current, and all that current must go through bump A. So we expect the brighter bump A. But now the current through bump A can go through bump B and C. The current splits, so we expect that the bump B will be dimmer than before. That makes sense to you? Yeah, this is this question. Okay, let's continue. Okay, let's talk about how to resolve those kind of problem. Yeah, this is how to analyze the resistor circuits and how to resolve those kind of problem. Yeah, let's talk about the strategies. Firstly, yeah, we can analyze any resistor circuit by sequentially reducing parallel and series resistor combination to their equivalent resistors until only the battery and the single equivalent resistors are left. Yeah, firstly, no matter how complicated this circuit is, and you need to, what you need to do firstly is just try to reduce parallel and series resistor combinations and using their equivalent resistor. Once the circuit's equivalent resistor is known, the current through it can be found from Ohm's law. Then we rebuild the circuit, converting each equivalent resistor to its original series or parallel resistor. As we do so, we find the current and voltage for each original resistor. That makes sense to you? Yeah, and we need to do some preparation work. Like firstly, let's draw the circuit diagram. Label all known and unknown quantities. Yeah, and then base your like a mathematical analysis of on like Kirchhoff's laws and on the rules for series and parallel resistors. Yeah, step by step, reduce the circuit to the smallest possible number of equivalent resistors. Yeah, and determine the current through and the potential difference across equivalent resistors, and then rebuild the circuit using the facts that the current is the same through resistors in series, and the potential difference is the same across parallel resistors. Yeah, this is what we talk about in last class. And after that, after you finish the calculation, you can access your like a result. Use two important checks as you rebuild the circuit. Firstly, the first thing is verify that the sum of the potential differences across series resistors matches the delta V for the equivalent resistor. Yeah. And the second one is verify that the sum of currents through parallel resistors matches I for the equivalent resistor. Yeah, you can use these two rules to verify your result. Yeah, you can also find this problem-solving approach in page 802 and 803 page in textbook. And okay, let's talk about this example problem. What is the current supplied by the battery in the following circuit? And what is the current through each resistor in the circuit? What is the potential difference across each resistor? Yeah, firstly, let's talk about what we just let's use the like a problem solving approach. We just talk about it, and then here, firstly, let's try to like get the equivalent resistor. And here you can see these are two identical resistor, which means in parallel, which means the equivalent for those two is half R. Am I right? We just talked about that. It is 5 ohm, and then it will in series with the other 5 ohm, which means the total equivalent will equal 5 plus 5 equal 10 ohm. And so the current supplied by the battery is, we use the Ohm's law, I equal what? V divided R. The equivalent total is 10 ohm, and the EMF is 10. So 10 divided 10, it will be 1 amp. That makes sense to you? And what is the current through each resistor in the circuit? Actually, from here, yeah, it's just like a from like a the current through the battery is 1A, and here it's just a split to current, and those, because those two are same, so one is half 0.5, the other is another 0.5, and here it will like add them together, so which means here it is 1A, yeah, because from here to here, the current is the same. Just in here, it just split to same different current. That makes sense to you. And what is the potential difference across the each? Yeah, you can see here, the potential difference here. We know like the potential difference V equal what? IR, am I right? So like here, I equal point half, and then you multiply them together, it is 5 volt. Here is 5 volt. Yeah, it's the same thing. And then here, 1A multiple 5O, it is like 5 volt. That makes sense to you. Yeah, you can verify it because here, from here to here, here is 10 volt, am I right? And then from here to here, it drops 5 volt. And from here, it also drops 5 volt. Here it is 0. That makes sense to you. Yeah. Okay. You can like I will leave this to you and you can recalculate it if you want. Okay, let's check this one. What is the equivalent resistance of the following circuit? Yeah, like we said, like no matter the how the circuit how complicated this circuit is, you just step by step. You need to like usually we just analyze this circuit like from left from right to left. Yeah, because here is the here is the end of the circuit, and then you need to like here is the power usually, the like a battery usually, and you need to analyze those kind of circuit from right to the left, and then you can see. Firstly, you just consider these two. Yeah, these two you can see it is connected in series, which means the equivalent resistance should equal those two add together. Am I right? So which is 15 ohm. Am I right? And then you can see here, which means it will become 50 ohm. And then it connected with the other 15 ohm in parallel, which means and the this part and the equivalence will be 50 divided 2. That makes sense to you. Yeah, be R, half R, am I right? So it is 0.5 oh, 7.5 oh, am I right? And then you can see this like a 7.5 oh connect with 2.5 oh in series, which means they should add together. Am I right? And then it should be 10 oh, which means this 10 oh and then connect with this 10 oh in parallel, which means those parallel equivalents should be 10 divided to 2 and 5 oh. That makes sense to you. And then which means those total resistance should be 5 oh, and then it connected with another 5 oh in series, which means the total equivalent resistance should be 5 oh plus 5 oh, it should be 10 oh. That makes sense to you. Yeah, you just use the equivalent equation we talk about in last class and analyze this from right to left, one step by one step. That makes sense to you. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, and this is we talk about the complex circuits, and just remember, no matter how complex this circuit is, just try to find the equivalent resistance. And if you want to find the equivalent resistance, just remember analyze this circuit from right to left, and one step by step to get the equivalent resistance, and then you can get the total equivalence resistance, and then you use Ohm's law to get the current, and after you get the current, and then you just use divided the equivalent resistance into the original one and calculate it step by step. Yeah, using this problem solving approach. Yeah, any questions, just let me know. Okay, let's talk about capacitors in parallel and series. Yeah, you can also review this video for this part, and I will not play this video here. Okay, and let's talk about the capacitors. Yeah, a capacitor is a circuit element made of two conductors separated by an insulating layer. Yeah, actually we talk about capacitor a lot in since since chapter 20, and you can see here there is for the capacitors there are two conductors, yeah, separated by an insulating layer. This is the insulating layer. When the capacitor is connected to the battery, charge will flow to the capacitor. Yeah, we talk about the capacitor. The capacitor can store like a charge, can store energy. Yeah, and when the capacitor connect to the battery, and the charge will flow to the capacitor, increasing its potential difference until like this the potential difference in the capacitor equal EMF. Yeah, which means all the charges has reached here. Once the capacitor is fully charged, there will be no further current. Yeah, the charge like a process will end. There is no like a charge flow. Yeah, and you can see the current is the motion of a charge. Am I right? Since there is no charge flow, so which means there is no current, no like a further current. That makes sense to you? Okay. Yeah, parallel or series capacitors can be represented by a single equivalent capacitance. Yeah, we talk about like the parallel or series resistors can be represented by a single like equivalent resistor. Yeah, and same thing for like capacitor. Yeah, the parallel and or series capacitor also can be represented by a single equivalent capacitor. But yeah, the calculated equation is totally different. You can see for parallel capacitors, yeah, this one, this is the parallel capacitor have the same, we know it has the same like potential difference, and which means this is, for example, this is the capacitor capacitance for this capacitor. This is capacitors for this capacitor. Like the charge is the charge equal the capacitance multiple the potential difference. Yeah, we talk about this one in last in chapter, I think in chapter 1. Yeah, you can like review it if you want. Yeah, and then this for this capacitor, the charge equal this one. Yeah, this equation we have talked about it before. Yeah, you can review it. Yeah, the total charge Q on two capacitor is yeah, we just add them together, and then you just we get this equation, and then we get this equation. Yeah, which means for the parallel, like if the capacitor connected in parallel, which means the total, the equivalent capacitance should add them together. Does it make sense to you? Yeah, it's just the opposite with the resistor. Yeah, the resistor is like if it connected in series, it added to but for capacitor, if it is in parallel and the capacitance added them together. Yeah, we can replace two capacitors in parallel by a single equivalent capacitance C. Yeah, this is a equivalent capacitance. Yeah, the equivalent capacitance has the same potential difference. Yeah, and yeah, and this is for the parallel capacitance. Yeah, the parallel capacitance equivalent like capacitance in parallel is just like a two capacitance, add them together. Yeah, and if n capacitors are in parallel, their equivalent capacitance is the sum of the individual capacitances. Yeah, like this equivalent capacitance equal like all those n like capacitance, add them together. Yeah, it's just like same with like resistors in series, but for capacitor it's in parallel. It has this equation. Okay, let's talk about the like series capacitors. Yeah, actually they have the same Q, am I right? Here it has Q, here it's Q, and then the voltage for the C1 is equal this one. Yeah, we just use the same Q equal V delta V like a multiple C1. This is Q1 and Q1, Q2, it's the same thing. Yeah, and then this is the delta V1, delta V2. And the delta V1 and delta V2, we know that it add them together equal EMF, am I right? Yeah, so which means the potential difference across two capacitors in series are this one. Yeah. we just assume like this capacitor has a capacitance C1, this has C2, and then the Q is like a series capacitor have the same Q, and then the potential difference in capacitor 1 is this one, and for capacitor 2 is this one, and those two, the potential difference across both capacitor is like this one. We call it like a capacitor difference. Actually, this one equal like if we place the two capacitors with a single capacitor having charge Q and potential difference delta Vc, then the inverse of the capacitance of this equivalent capacitor is this one. Yeah, you can see. This is what we if we just consider those two as one single one, is single one. Yeah, the Q, because it is just a Q, and this is a potential difference. Yeah, and this is the potential difference, and this is the charge, and then the actually we just you can consider this is this one, like because delta Vc divide Q divide Q, like equal what? Equal Q divided C1 plus Q divided C2 divided Q. Yeah, because you can see delta V1 equal this one, delta V2 equal this one. Am I right? And this equal this one, and which means delta Vc divided Q equal C1 like divided 1 divided C1 plus 1 divided C2. Yeah, that makes sense to you. So which means this is just we consider like the capacitor as one. Yeah, because we know like the delta Q equal delta Vc C, am I right? So which means like the delta Vc divided Q equal what? 1 divided C. That makes sense to you? Yeah, just put this is here and put this is here. Yeah, so which means C1, if this is a C equivalent like capacitor, yeah, like C equivalent, yeah, equivalent equal this one, because this one equal this one, am I right? So which means equal C1 1 divided C1 plus 1 divided C2. Does it make sense to you? Yeah, that's the reason why we got this equation. Yeah, if we replace the two resistors with a single capacitor having charge Q and a potential difference delta Vc, then the inverse of capacitance of the equivalent capacitor is equal this one, and equal this one, equal this one. Yeah, which means if you want to calculate the like a series capacitor, the capacitor connected in series, and the equivalent like a capacitance equal what? C1, 1 divided C1 plus 1 divided C2, and power -1. Yeah, it's just similar with the resistor connected in parallel. Yeah, this analysis hinges on the fact that series capacitors each have the same charge Q. Yeah, like the series capacitor each have the same charge Q. Yeah, no matter how many capacitors here, they always have charge Q. They have the same charge Q. That makes sense to you? Yeah. Okay. You can see here, same Q for C1 and C2. Same total potential difference as like C1 and C2 if the potential if the capacitance is the same. That makes sense to you? Okay. Let's continue. If n capacitors are in series, their equivalent capacitance is the inverse of the sum of the inverse of the individual capacitance. Yeah, you can see this equation is very familiar to you, am I right? Because you can see if a resistor like connected in parallel, this is the equation for that. But for the capacitors and when the capacitors connect in series, you can get the equivalent capacitance using this equation. For series capacitors, the equivalent capacitance is less than that of the individual capacitors. Actually, it's similar with the resistor in series, in parallel, yeah. And you can see if the total the equivalent capacitance must be smaller than every individual like capacitors. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about. Let's check this question. Yeah. Which of the following combinations of capacitors has the highest capacitance? Yeah, like actually, I think this question just forgot to tell us those capacitor has the same capacitance. Yeah, you can see. Suppose those capacitors have the same capacitance. Yeah, this one is C. We suppose it is C. Yeah, it's just one capacitor, and this like capacitor, two capacitor in parallel, which means the total should be C plus C equal to C. Am I right? And this one is in series, which means the equivalence capacitance is 1 divided C, 1 divided C, and then power like -1. It is C half C, and this one is like C plus half C equal. So which means that this one is has the highest capacitance. That makes sense to you? Yeah. Just like pay attention. Like the capacity when you calculate the like equivalent capacitance, it's just opposite with resistors. Yeah. The equations are just opposite with when you calculate the resistors. Yeah. Okay. The answer is B. Okay, let's talk about this example, analyzing a capacitor circuit. Firstly, let's find the equivalent capacitance of the combination of capacitors in the circuit. And then what charge flows through the battery as the capacitors are being charged. Okay, let's analyze it one by one. Yeah, for this strategy, we will use the relationships for parallel and series capacitors to reduce the capacitors to a single equivalent capacitance, much as we did for resistor circuits. Yeah, we can then compute the charge through the battery using this value of capacitance. Okay, you can see, like for this one, firstly, these two connected in parallel, which means the equivalence should this one plus this one. So it is 6 mu f, am I right? Yeah, and then this like circle can be changed to this one. And this 6 mu f like capacitors connect with these three in parallel, which means we use this equation to calculate it. Yeah, equivalence capacitance equal 1 divided 3 plus 1 divided 6, and then power -1 equal to mu f. So which means the total capacitance is 2 mu f. And we can get this circuit finally. And then we use this equation. And this equation we talk about a lot in before chapters. You can review it. Yeah, the battery sees a capacitance of 2 mu f to establish a potential difference of 12 volt. The charge that must flow is this one. Yeah, we know Q equal C multiple delta V potential difference. And then we know the equivalence capacitor is this one, and the voltage is this one, and this is the charge that must flow is this one. Yeah. Let's assess this result. We solve capacitor circuit problems in a manner very similar to what we follow for resistor circuit. But pay attention, the equations for like a capacitance and a capacitor and the resistor is opposite. Yeah. So just be pay attention to that part. Okay. Let's talk about the RC circuits, and you will know like what is RC circuits and how to analyze those kind of circuits. Yeah. The RC circuits are circuits containing resistors and capacitors. Yeah, that's the reason why we call it RC circuits, because it containing resistors, this is R, and capacitors, this is C. That makes sense to you? So we call it RC circuits. In RC circuits, the current varies with time. Yeah, I think that makes sense because the C, it can store the charges, and yeah, so that's the reason why the current varies with time. Yeah, the values of the resistance and the capacitance in an RC circuit determines the time it takes the capacitors to charge or discharge. Yeah, there is a, yeah, we will talk about why the value of resistance and capacitance in a RC circuit determines the time. And also we will talk about how to calculate. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Yeah, this figure. Yeah, here, this figure. Yeah, shows an RC circuit consisting of a charged capacitor. Yeah, this is a charged capacitor. And as an open, there is an open switch and a resistor before the switch close. The switch will close at t equals 0, which means at the beginning this switch is open, and when we observe it from start from t equals 0, and then we close it. Yeah, and this is the initial charge for this capacitor. Yeah, this is the status before the switch close. Okay, and then this figure shows the circuit immediately after the switch closes. Yeah, you can see the charge separation on capacitor produces a potential difference, which causes a current after you close it. The current is the flow of charge, so the current discharges the capacitor. Does that make sense to you? Yeah, the capacitor voltage is still this one. Yeah, because the capacitor hasn't yet had time to lose any charge. Yeah, when you like close this, I think this is just misplaced here. Yeah, just ignore that. And yeah, when you like close this switch immediately at t equals 0, yeah, the capacitor hasn't yet had time to lose any charge. But now there is a current I0, because when you close this when you close this switch, and the charge will move. Yeah, when the charges are moving, and which means there is a current, but the like a voltage difference, like the potential difference hasn't had time to lose, yeah, to lose any charge. Yeah, okay, that's the reason why like when the t equals 0 at this moment, yeah, there is the capacitor voltage is still like the initial value, and there is the current, yeah, because it is starting to discharge the capacitor. Okay, and the initial potential difference is this one. Okay, sorry, I want to add more details about these things, and I think maybe this sentence makes you a little confused. Actually, you can see when the t equals 0 and this switch is closed, at this moment, at this exactly moment, there are some charges go through the wire, and you know, like the charge flow is current, which means there is a current. But at this moment, we just talk this moment, and the charge go left this capacitor is not that much. is a little. So we just consume like at this moment the capacitor velocity is still like the beginning value. Yeah, let's explain this sentence like this. I think there this will be clear. Yeah, does it make sense to you? Okay. So the initial potential difference, we know it is equal this one. Yeah, it's the all the charge divided the capacitance. And the initial current, yeah, the initial rate at which the capacitor begins to discharge is this one. Yeah, because this is like according to the Ohm's law. Yeah, this is the velocity, like a potential difference for the capacitor, which means this we consider this as a battery, as a power source, and the voltage is this one, and this is a resistor. So this is the current we can get. Yeah, this is the image for like immediately after the switch closes. The charge separation on the capacitor produces a potential difference which causes the current. And the current is the flow of charge. So the current, this charge is a capacitor. Yeah. And then after some time, yeah, both the charge on the capacitor and the current in the circuit has decreased. Yeah, like because you can see at some times the charge in the capacitor on the capacitor is like a decrease. You can see at the beginning, yeah, it has much charge, but after some time, the few charge the charge is leaving. The charges are leaving, so there are few left. Yeah, so at some time, both the charge on the capacitor and thus the potential difference and the current in the circuit has decreased. When the capacitor voltage has decreased to this one, yeah, like we call it like a potential difference for capacitor. The current has decreased to this one. Yeah, because you can see this is just the like at this time, like after some time, like the potential difference will become to delta VC, and the R is it will now be changed. So the current will equal this one according to the Ohm's law. It doesn't make sense to you. Yeah, the current and the voltage decrease until the capacitor is fully discharged and the current is zero. You can see if the capacitor is fully discharged, which means there is no charges here, which means there is no current. That makes sense to you? Yeah. This is at a later time, the current has reduced the charge on the capacitor. This reduces the potential difference. The reduced potential difference leads to a reduced current. Does it make sense to you? Okay. Yeah, this is like a current and the capacitor voltage decline to zero after the switch closes, but not linearly. Yeah, it's not a linear like a relationship. Yeah, you can see after the switch closes at this time. Yeah, this is zero, for example, and the the like current is the maximum because you can see the V initial V, yeah, is potential initial difference is the maximum, and then the R is the same thing. So at the beginning, the like current is the maximum, and then as the time passing, the current will decreases until to zero after like the um, capacitors discharge, like yeah, will fully discharged. Yeah, and further like as time going on, the current and the capacitor voltage also, yeah, the capacitor voltage also decreases. Yeah, also decrease. Yeah, and like the diagram is just similar with this one. And at the beginning, and the initial like potential difference is the maximum. Yeah, and after the time, as time goes on, and it will decreases until to zero. And when the capacitor fully discharged, does it make sense to you? Yeah, this is the relationship between the time and the current time and the like potential difference in on capacitor. Okay. Yeah, the decrease of the voltage and the current are exponential decrease. Yeah, the relationship you can see is not like linear. It's just a exponential like a relationship. Yeah, this is we can use this equation to represent the like current changes as the time goes on. Yeah, this is the velocity, like the potential difference on capacitor as the time goes on. Yeah, here T is the time, and this is the current and voltage during a capacitor discharge. Yeah, you also can like view this video for discharge speed for series and parallel capacitors. Yeah, I will not play here it here. Okay, yeah, you can see there is this is T. Sorry, let me make it clear. Here, this T is a variable. Yeah, this T is the like a time, the changing time. And here, this RC, you can see for a specific circuit, the R is the resistance, the resistance resistor. The resistance will not change. Am I right? And the capacitance, like for a specific capacitor, it will not change. So, which means this RC will be a constant for a specific RC circuit. And then we call this the time constant tau is a characteristic time for a circuit. A long time constant implies a slow decay. Yeah, a long time constant implies a slow decay. A short time constant will represent a rapid decay. Yeah, do you know why? Yeah, actually, if you observe this equation, and you can see this one is an exponential decrease, and if this one bigger, am I right? And this one will be smaller, am I right? And here is a negative, so which means the total will be like a slow decay. And oppositely, if this one, if RC is smaller, which means this one will be decrease, and then it will be like a rapid decay. Yeah, this is the character for the potential like equation. Yeah, you can, if you are interested in it, and you can review like what is exponential equation and how can you represent it. Yeah, so yeah, we just remember like a long time constant implies a slow decay. A short time constant like it represent a rapid decay, and the time constant tau, yeah, is equal RC. You can see in terms of the time constant, the current and the voltage equations are this one. Yeah, because we just replace RC with tau. Yeah. Yeah, you can use this equation to calculate the current and the voltage and as the time passing. Yeah, which means for RC circuit and the current and the voltage is changed. Yeah, now the constant always. Yeah, okay. You can see the current and the voltage in your circuit do not drop to zero after one time constant. Yeah, you can see here if you like observe carefully, here is a T. Actually, here is a tau, here is 2 tau, here is 3 tau. You can see the current, this is for the voltage, and the current is the same thing. Yeah, will not drop to zero in after one time constant. Yeah, each increase in time by one time constant cause the voltage and the current to decrease by a factor of this one. Yeah, this is just this exponential like equation decide this. Yeah, after a time constant, and the voltage will drop will get to 1.37 like initial potential difference, and after another tau, it will like get to 1.37 multiple 1.357. Yeah, the initial one, and then this one equal 0.13. Yeah, that makes sense to you. And after 3 tau, and you just multiply another 0.3, and as the time passing, yeah, and it will goes to 0. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Okay. The time constant has a form. Yeah, we talk about this. This is a time constant. A large resistance oppose the flow of charge. So increase in R increases the decay time. Yeah, you can see. You can see. Yeah, like here, those two also explain why the time constant increase along increase will implies a slow decay, and a short time is will result rapid decay. Yeah, that's the reason. Actually, you can analyze from this exponential equation, but here you can see a large resistance opposes the flow of charge. It makes sense, am I right? If the resistance is large, which means the flow of charge will slow. That makes sense. Does it make sense? So the increase in R increasing the decay time. That makes sense to you. Yeah. And a large capacitance stores more charge. So increase in C also increases the decay time. That makes sense to you. So which means the if the RC the time constant decrease increase, yeah, a long time constant will make the decay slow. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Yeah, because it like increases the decay time, which means make the decay slow. And if the RC time constant decrease, which means yeah the situation is resistance will slow will decrease. All the capacitance is decrease. Those two all results the decay decrease the decay time. Like it will have the rapid decay. Doesn't make sense to you? Yeah, this is just explain why it's from the physical facts, physical phenomenon to explain why it is just like that. Okay, let's review these quick check questions. Which capacitor discharges more quickly after the switch is closed? You can see for this one, tau equal what? RC equal what? 2 multiple 6 equal, because the unit here is the same, so we just ignore the unit. It is 12. Yeah, and here is tau equal what? RC is 5, 3 multiple 5 is 50, which means the bigger the bigger time constant, which means what? Yeah, which means will increase the decay time. Am I right? So here the question ask us discharge more rapid quickly, which means it will short the charge time. So which means this one A will has a shorter decay time. That makes sense to you. So the answer should be A. That makes sense to you. Yeah, because the smaller time constant will represent the rapid discharges. Yeah, rapid decay. That makes sense to you. Okay, let's have this one. The following circuits contain capacitors that are charged to 5 volt. All of the switches are closed at the same time. After 1 second has passed, which capacitors retain the highest charged voltage. Yeah, you can see here which capacitor retains the highest, which means we need the decay more slow. Am I right? So which means we need the time constant the biggest. So here this one the time constant is equal 1 multiple 2 is 2. This one is 2, which means it is what? Smaller, it is equal what? It is equal, let me calculate it. Point, this one, and this is 1 multiple 3, it is 3, and this is uh yeah, it is 1, yeah, which means we need to find the the biggest time constant, which means this one has the biggest time constant. Does it make sense to you? Yeah, so which means C is the right answer. Does it make sense to you? Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's check this question. Yeah, in the following circuit, the switch is initially closed and the bulb glows brightly. When the switch is opened, what happened to the brightness of the bulb? Yeah, actually, let's analyze these questions. Yeah, let's try to figure out what's happening in the circuit. Yeah, actually, in the beginning, the switch is closed. So, yes, at the beginning, like the switch is closed. Yeah, so the capacitor is bypassed. Yeah, it is short. You can see this is just a wire. So there is no current, no charge goes through the capacitor. And the battery directly powers the bulb, which glows brightly. Yeah, when the switch is opened, the capacitor is no longer bypassed, and the current will go through like this. The charge will go through like this, and the capacitor is no longer bypassed and enters the circuit. And what happens next? Yeah, actually the capacitor is initially uncharged, so it acts like a wire. Yeah, very slow, like at the beginning, like when the switch is closed, at that moment the capacitor is initially uncharged, so it's act like a wire. Yeah, the bulb gets the full battery voltage and stays bright at first. Yeah, over time the capacitor like charges. Yeah, because at the beginning the charge haven't like stored. Yeah, so the bomb is just bright at first. Yeah, but over time the capacitor charges. Yeah, reducing the current. Yeah, we know as the time passing, the current is it will decrease. Yeah, reducing the current through the bomb. So which means the current decreases. Yeah, the bomb will dim. Yeah, so let's check which one is right. You can see, yeah, this one, the bulb starts at the same brightness and then gradually dims. Does it make sense to you? Yeah, at the beginning, this capacitor is just like a wire, like this. And then the bulb is has the same brightness as before. But as the time passing, the capacitor like store the charges and the current will like decrease, which means the bulb will damps. Does it make sense to you? Okay, yeah, the answer should be B. Okay, let's continue to talk about this example. Finding the current in an RC circuit. Yeah, the switch in the circuit has been in position A. Yeah, at the beginning. This is A, and for a long time. Yeah, which means it just like charge the capacitor. Yeah, like so the capacitor is fully charged. The switch is changed to position B at the t equals 0. What is the current in the circuit immediately after the switch is closed? And what is the current in the circuit 25 seconds later? Yeah, let's talk about this example. Yeah, when sorry, I think I just put, yeah, just ignore this one. Yeah, this one is just seamless. Yeah, when the switch is moved to position B, the battery no longer plays. You can see the battery will be removed from this circuit. Yeah, and the battery no longer play any role in the circuit. The current then falls exponentially with a time constant determined by the resistor and the capacitor. Yeah, we talked about it just now. Yeah, the time consists for the decay is given by equation 23.23. Yeah, it's just this one, tau equal what? RC. Yeah, we can calculate the time constant. Yeah, this is R and this is C. And then we talk about, we know it is 10 like a millisecond. And this question asks us like what is the current in the circuit immediately after the switch is closed, and what is the current in the circuit out like 25 millisecond later. Yeah, which means the capacitor is connected across the battery terminals. So initially it charged to the like initial like a potential difference is 9 volt. Here is 9 volt. When the switch is moved to position B, yeah, and which means the I we can use the like Ohm's law. Yeah, it's given by this Ohm's law. Like this is like a initial like a potential difference, like a energy potential energy potential energy. This is like a resistor, and this is current at the beginning goes through the like a resistor. That does make sense to you? Yeah, and after as charge flows, the capacitor discharges. The current in the like a circuit as a function of time is given by this one. Yeah, by this one. Yeah, and the current. Yeah, just yeah by this one. Yeah, and 25 uh like 25 millisecond after the switch is moved to position B, the equation the current is yeah. Sorry, we just like according to this equation. Yeah, here is the like a current as a time pass. What's how the current change as a time pass? How the like potential like voltage change as a time pass? Yeah, we use this equation, and then here, yeah, you can see. Yeah, we use this equation. And here we know that time constant is 10, and after like 25 milliseconds, we just put the 25 seconds is here. And this is initial current, and then we can go the final and now final like the current after like 25 milliseconds, the current will become this one. Yeah, and that makes sense to you. Yeah, you just use the equation to calculate it. Yeah, this result makes sense. Like a 25 millisecond after the switch has close to 2.5 time constant. We just like know that after one tau, it will like multiple like 0.37. Am I right? So one tau, two tau will like it's around 0.13, and then multiple and it will like it's close to 2.5 time constant. So we expect the current to decrease to a small fraction of the initial current. Notice that we left times in unit of mu s. This is one of the rare cases where we needn't convert to SI units, because the exponent, this one will involve a ratio of 2 times. We need only be content that both T and tau are the same unit. Yeah, that here it's just talk about why we didn't change like transfer the unit to S, because those two for those two and the unit is the same, so we don't need to like transfer to the same to the seconds. Yeah, you can also do that. Transfer this 2 seconds, transfer this 2 seconds, but it will not affect the result. That makes sense to you? Okay, let's talk about the charging a capacitor. In a circuit that charges a capacitor, once the switch is closed, the potential difference of the battery causes a current in the circuit, and the capacitor begins to charge. Yeah, we just talk about the like capacitor discharging. Here we talk about the charging. Yeah, and for the charging, like we just close the switch, and then the potential difference of the battery causes a current in the circuit, and the capacitor begins to charge. As the capacitor charges, it develops a potential difference that opposes the current. So the current decreases. Yeah, we talk about yeah just now. Yeah, because as a capacitor charges, it develops a potential difference that opposes the current, so the current decreases, and so does the rate of the charges. The capacitor charges until this potential difference on capacitor equal EMF from the battery. Yeah. And the equation that describes the capacitor voltage and current as a function of time. And this is just this is just the current and the voltage. You can see this one is actually it's just the same with the a discharge. At the beginning it is big here. Here, sorry. Yeah, here it's similar, but it's same. But for the velocity, it's different. Yeah, because yeah, but the velocity is different. Yeah, because if you charging if you charging the capacitor at the beginning it's 0, and finally it will reach to EMF. It's just opposite with the discharging. Does it make sense to you? Yeah. So this is the equation for the current, and this is equation for the voltage. Yeah, we just this is just a graphic for how the current change as the time passing. This is how the time, how the voltage change as the time passing. Yeah. Okay. Let's check this. Let's check some questions. The capacitor is initially unchanged. Immediately after the switch closed, the capacitor's voltage is. Yeah, we talk about that. Actually, it at the beginning, t equals 0, immediately after this close, the charge there is a current, but the charge hasn't reached to this capacitor, which means the here you can see. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, here the voltage on capacitor is 0 at that moment when the switch is closed, because the charge hasn't get to the capacitor. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Yeah, so the answer should be 0. Okay, let's check this one. The red curve shows how the capacitor charges after the switch is closed at t equals 0. Yeah, which means the red here is a red curve, shows how capacitor charges after. Yeah, which curve shows the capacitor charging if the value of resistor is reduced. Yeah, which means if the value is reduced, if the value of resistor is reduced, which means the current will rapidly, the charge will go fast. That makes sense to you. So which means the Q on the capacitor will become at the short time it will get to the maximum. That makes sense to you. Yeah, but the total charges is same because this one is now changed. So the answer should be B. That makes sense to you. Yeah, and the total charges will be the same. Yeah, smaller time constant. Yeah, same ultimate amount of charge. That makes sense to you. Yeah, because the battery EMF for the battery is the same. Okay, let's continue. Yeah. We talk about the capacitors and the RC circuit and how to calculate the capacitance in if the capacitor is connected in series in parallel. Yeah, for now, let's talk about the electricity in the nervous system. Actually, this is some application. What you need is just know, how the electricity works in our nervous system. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about that. Yeah, in the late 1017 700, yeah, the scientists Gavini and others, yes, some scientists revealed that electric signals can animate muscle cells, and a small portion applied to the axon of a nerve cell can produce a signal that propagates down its length. Actually, if you know that like our nerve signal, our nerve signal system, yeah, they like communicate with other like other parts in our body through like some electric signals. If you, I don't know if have you ever heard about that. Yeah, we will talk about the details later. Yeah, you can see here. This is experiments like this scientists do, like give some simulator, and then you can see there are some like in our like there will be some electrical signal in our muscle fiber and some like nervous systems. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. You can see a simple model of a nerve cell begins with a cell membrane and isolating layers of lipids approximately 7 nanometer thick that separates regions of conducting fluid inside and outside the cell. You can see. And ions, rather than electrons, are the charge carriers of the cell. Our simple model will only consider the transport of two opposite ions, sodium and potassium. Although other ions are important as well. Yeah, actually, this is just a simple like model to analyze the our nerve system, but in the real like in our like body, in our nerve system, the situation is more complicated than this, but we just simplify the model. You can see here, yeah, the pump here, the pump moves sodium out of the cell. Yeah, this one out of the cell. Yeah, and potassium in. Yeah, move the potassium in. So the sodium concentration is higher outside the cell, and the potassium and concentration is higher inside. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Yeah, this is the cell membrane, and this is the conducting fluids, and this is the sodium, and this is the potassium, and this is the channel, sodium channel, is potassium channels. Yeah, you can see when a sodium channel is open, the higher sodium concentration outside the cell causes ions to flow into the cell. When the potassium channel is open, the higher potassium concentration inside the cell causes ions to flow out of the cell. Yeah, this is like how the ions is moved in our like body. Yeah, the ion exchange pumps act much like the charge as a escalator of a battery, using chemical energy to separate charge by transporting ions. Yeah, a living cell generates an EMF. Yeah, and the charge separation produces an electric field inside the cell membrane and results in a potential difference between the inside and outside of the cell. Actually, yeah, you can see they move the for the sodium, and it is positive. For the like the potassium, it is negative. So which can generate after you like transfer, yeah, you like after you transfer like move these like ions, and then the electric field can be generated. Yeah, and then results in a potential difference between the inside and outside of the cell. That makes sense to you? Okay, the potential inside a nerve cell is less than the outside of the cell. It's called the cell's resting potential. Yeah. Because the potential difference is produced by a charge separation across the membrane, we see the membrane is polarized. Yeah. And because the potential difference is entirely across the membrane, we call this potential difference the membrane potential. Yeah, you can see. here is the image for that. The conducting fluids inside and outside. The cell has a zero field. Yeah, charges on the inside and outside surface. The insulating membrane create a field inside it here. Yeah, and this is the potential inside the cell is this around this one. Yeah, this is by measurement. Yeah. Okay. And okay. Firstly, let's check some like one example to let us understand what we have already talked about. Yeah, finding the electric field in a cell membrane. Yeah, the thickness of a typical nerve cell membrane is 7 nanometer. What is the electric field inside the membrane of a resting nerve cell? Yeah, the inner and the outer surface of the membrane are equipotentials. We learned in chapter 21 that the electric field is perpendicular to the equipotentials and is related to the potential difference, yeah, by this equation. Yeah, we can calculate the electric field using this equation. The magnitude, like the magnitude of the electric potential of the yeah, of like the magnitude, the potential difference between the inside and the outside of cell is this one. Yeah, this is like we measure this is around the negative like 7. The magnitude is 70 V. Yeah, and the electric field strength. Yeah, we can calculate using this equation. Yeah, we know the like potential difference, and we know the distance here. There is a distance, and then we can calculate the electric field equal this one, and the field points from positive to negative. So the electric field is this is the magnitude, and this is the direction. Yeah, this is a very large. Actually, you can see it is like a and it is very large. Yeah, this is a very large electric field. In air, it would be large enough to cause a spark, but we expect the fields to be large to explain the cell's strong electrical character. Yeah, you can see inside our body there are a large electric field. Amazing, am I right? So, okay, let's continue to talk about the electrical nature of nerve cells. Yeah, the fluids inside and outside of the membrane are good conductors, but the cell membrane is not. Yeah, charges therefore accumulate on the inside and outside surface of the membrane. A cell thus looks like two charged conductors separated by an insulator. Yeah, what is it? Yeah, a capacitor. That makes sense to you. Yeah. And the membrane is not a perfect isolator because charges can move across it. The cell membrane will have a certain resistance. Yeah, it's just not an ideal like a capacitor. Yeah, okay. Because the cell membrane, yeah, here is the cell membrane. Yeah, because the cell membrane has both resistance and capacitance, it can be modeled as an RC circuit. Yeah, you can see. It can be considered as a capacitor. It also can be considered as a like a resistor. Yeah, like any RC circuit, the membrane has a time constant. Yeah, the resistance of the cell wall is this one. Yeah, we just this is by measurement, and the capacitance is around this one. Yeah, so the time constant is capacitor is we just multiple those two together is equal this one is around 3 milliseconds. Yeah. Okay. The membrane potential can charge drastically in response to a stimulus. Neurons, nerve cells can be stimulated by neurotransmitter chemicals released at synapse junctions. A neuron can also be stimulated by a changing potential. The result of the stimulus is a rapid change called an action potential. The firing of a nerve cell. Yeah, this is what is action potential? Yeah, because the like the membrane potential can change drastically in response to a stimulus. Yeah, and those the result of this stimulus is a rapid change, called an action potential. After this stimulus, and there will be a rapid change for the potential. We call this action potential. Yeah, and yeah, a cell depolarizes when a stimulus causes the opening of the sodium channels. The concentration of sodium ions is much higher outside the cell, so positive sodium ions flow into the cell, rapidly raising its potential to 40 40 MV, at which point the sodium channels close. You can see at the beginning it is negative 70 MV, and a cell after a cell after if there is a stimulus, yeah, stimulus, and a cell will depolarizes, yeah, when a stimulus causes, and then there will be an action potential, and the total potential will raise to 40 MV. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Okay, the cell polarizes as potassium channels open. The higher potassium concentration inside the cell drives these ions out of the cell. The potassium channels close when the membrane potential reaches about negative 8 volt, slightly less than the resting potential. Yeah. And then after it adjustment, and the potential will come back to negative 70. Yeah. The re-establishment of the resting potential after the sodium and the potassium channels close is a relatively slow process controlled by the motion of ions across the membrane. Yeah, you can see. And after this action potential, after this stimulation, and after the potential difference decreased to negative 80 volt, and then the diffusion of ions reestablishes, yeah, the resting potential, and then it goes to back negative 70 MV to get a stable situation. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Yeah, and you can also check some videos to see this kind of things. Okay. Okay, after the action potential is complete, there is a brief resting period, after which the cell is ready to be triggered again. The action potential is driven by ionic conduction through sodium and potassium channels, so the potential charges are rapid. Yeah, the time for the potential to rise and then to fall is much less than the 3 milliseconds time constant of the membrane. Yeah, muscles also undergo a similar cycle of polarization. That's why our muscles or our cells is moving. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the propagation of nerve impulses. How is a signal transmitted from the brain to a muscle in the hand? Yeah, the primary cells of the nervous system responsible for signal transmission are known as neurons. Yeah, the transmission of a signal to a muscle is a function of a motor neuron. The transmission of the signals takes place along the axon of the neuron. A long fiber that connects the cell body to a muscle fiber. Actually, there is a yeah, we will talk about there is an image for this one. Yeah, the signal is transmitted along an axon because the axon is long enough that it may have different potentials at different points. When one point is stimulated, the membrane will depolarize at that point. We just talk about action potential. The resulting action potential may trigger depolarization in adjacent parts of the membrane. This wave of action potential, nerve impulse, travels along the axon. Yeah, actually, yeah, this is just the image I want to show you. You can see here, there are some, this is our nerve system. This is a there is this is cell body, this is axon, and this is muscle fibers. And you can see the dendrites are short extensions to the cell that can receive signals from the other neurons. And the the axon may be wrapped in an isolating myelin sheath formed by specialized cells called Schwartz cells. Yeah, the myelin sheath is broken by short, uninsulated segments called nose nerve ravel. Yeah, a signal is propagated along the axon. Yeah, this one to where it meets and can simulate the muscle fibers. Yeah, which means that these signals will go through from here to make the muscle fibers move. Yeah, and we will talk about more later. Yeah, you can see a small increases in potential difference across the membrane of a cell causes the sodium channel to open, trigger a large action potential response. Yeah, we talk about this. Yeah, here, this one, this is the cell. Yeah, we just simple uh, this image to and then get a small like a range to analyze it. Yeah, here is a model of a neuron. This is a cell body. This is axon. Yeah, here it's just like this is a cell body and this is the axon. Yeah, and you can see a close-up view of the axon shows that the cell membranes has the usual ion channels. Yeah, and then yeah, you can see this is the signal propagation in the axon. This part of the membrane is the this part yeah is depolarization. Yeah, this so this in this part like the sodium channels open. Yeah, the membrane potential varies along the axon. Yeah, and then yeah now yeah this part is a repolarizing. Yeah, well this part like is a ejection part is depolarizing. So the potential will change. The potential difference will change. Yeah, in the axon, and this is yeah after like the simulation, a change in potential at one point triggers the membrane to the right, leading to a wave of action potential that move along the axon. Yeah, you can see this is the membrane recovery. Okay. And yeah, the axon of motor neurons and most other neurons can transmit signals at very high speeds because they are insulated with a myelin sheath. So, Schwann cells wrap the axon with myelin, insulating it electrically and chemically, which with the breaks at the node of ravel. The ion channels are concentrated in these models because this is the only place where the extracellular fluid is in contact with the cell membrane. In an inserted axis, a signal propagates by jumping from one node to the next in a process called saltatory conduction. Yeah, let's talk about this one. Yeah, here is an electrical mode of a myelinated axon. You can see here there will be a power. Yeah, uh, and this member we talk about is just a kind of like a capacitor, and this is a fluid is just like a conducting fluid is just a resistor. So there is a RC circuit. Yeah, the iron channels are located at the nodes. Yeah, these iron channels. When they are triggered, the potential at the node changes rapidly to positive 40 volt. Yeah, this one is just can like a battery, like a power source. Thus, this section of the iron acts like a battery with a switch. And then the conductor fluid within the electron acts like the resistor. Yeah, resistor R here. Yeah, and the mailing cells acts like the electric capacitor C between the conducting fluids inside and outside the electron. You can see here. Yeah, this is iron channels are located at the nodes. When they are triggered, the potential at the nodes changes rapidly to this one, and thus this section of the iron acts like a battery, and this conductor flows within the like a resistor, and this here the mailing cells acts like the electric of a capacitor C between the conducting flows inside and outside the iron. It's just like capacitor, yeah. And then if an action potential is triggered at this node, we close the switch. It's just like yeah, action potential is triggered at this node. It's just similar like we close the switch, and then yeah, once the switch is closed, the action potential EMF drives a current down the electron and charge the capacitor. Capacitance of the membrane. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Okay, and then when the voltage on the capacitor exceeds the threshold, it triggers an action potential at this node. Yeah. Yeah, the next switch is closed. Yeah, actually, if here they have the enough like the capacitor the voltage on this capacitor exceeds a threshold, it will trigger action potential at this node, and the next switch, this switch will close, and then it will pass the signal to this direction. That makes sense to you? Okay, and yeah, these ion channels at this node are triggered, generate an action potential. Yeah, the ion flow down the electron begins to charge the next segment. Yeah, this is just the like a whole process, and this is just like the we just zoom out and see the details. Yeah, and this is the nerve propagation along a marinated arrow. Yeah, that makes sense to you. Yeah, once the potential reaches a threshold value, an action potential is triggered at the next node. Yeah, and the process continues with the signal triggering each node in sequence. Yeah, it will trigger at the beginning, trigger this one, trigger this one, trigger this one. Yeah, and get to the muscle fiber. That makes sense to you. Yeah, so the signal moves rapidly along the electron from node to node, and yeah, let's think about one question. How rapidly does a pulse move down a melted electron? And the third and the critical time for propagation is the time constant RC. Yeah, the resistance of the electron between nodes is this one. Yeah, and the rapid the capacitance of the membrane is this one per. Yeah, it's just mirrored. So the time constant is after we calculate is equal around 40 milliseconds because the nodes for rival are spaced about 1 millimeter apart. The speed at which the nerve impulse travels down the electron is approximately this one. Yeah, like a 25 meter per second. Yeah, it's very fast. I'm right. So that's the reason why our like body, our like the signals in our body is very fast. When we want to do something, it's rapidly like transfer the signals. Yeah, does make sense to you? Okay. Yeah, this is what we talk about the nervous system. Actually, yeah, you can see there are so many like terms for our body, like but what you just remember is here there is in our like body in our nerve system is there will form a because of the potential difference, there will form a RC circuit, and the RC circuit and will like will run like and then trigger the next one, and then the signal will transfer like in two different like electron. That makes sense to you, yeah. what this is just what you need to remember. Yeah. And okay, this is what we talk about in this class. Yeah, in this class, we mainly focus on the more complex circuits and the capacitors. Yeah, the parallel capacitors and the series capacitors. Actually, the equation is just opposite, like with the resistor. You need to pay attention to that. And the RC circuit, which means the circuit, this circuit has a resistor and the capacitor at the same time, and then you can there are some like problem solving steps you need to apply. Yeah, you need to follow those steps. Yeah, and okay, let's summarize this chapter. Also, you can check this video for how to analyze a circuit. I will now play this video here. Okay, and firstly, yeah, we talk about the Kirchhoff. There are some general principles. Yeah, those two are very important when you analyze the circuit. The Kirchhoff's loop law. Yeah, for a closed loop, assign a direction to the current, add a potential difference around loop, and you can see the sum of the potential difference around the loop is zero. Yeah, this is Kirchhoff's loop law. And we also talk about the Kirchhoff's junction law. Like for a junction, the input current is equals the output current. Yeah, you need to remember those two. It's very important for us to analyze the circuit. And then there are like how to analyze the circuit. There are some like steps. Firstly, like you need to sequentially reduce parallel and series resistor combination to their equivalent resistor. If there are some like capacitor, you just like reduce parallel and series capacitors. Yeah, and draw a circular diagram and then breaks the circle down, reduce the circle to the smallest possible number of equivalent resistors, and find the current and the potential difference, and then rebuild the circuit, find the current and potential difference for each resistor. Yeah, this is steps for us to analyze a circuit. Yeah, okay. And finally, after you get the result, you need to verify that. And there are two different rules you need to obey and to check your result. The first one is the sum of potential differences across series resistors equals the potential difference across the equivalent resistor. And then the sum of the currents through parallel resistors equals the current through the equivalent resistor. Yeah, you can verify your result using these two rules. Okay, and yeah, we talk about the series elements. Yeah, you can see here, a series connection has no junction. The current in each element is the same. So resistors in series can be reduced to an equivalence using this equation. Yeah, but the capacitors in series can be reduced to an equivalent capacitors using this equation. Yeah, you can see, and for the like a parallel, yeah, you can see the elements connected in parallel are connected by wires at both ends. The potential difference across each element is the same. So resistance in parallel can be reduced to an equivalent resistance using this equation. And the capacitors in parallel can be reduced to an equivalence like a capacitance using this equation. You can see it's just a opposite. Yeah, that makes sense to you? Okay. And then we talk about the RC circuits. Yeah, the discharge of a capacitor through a resistor is an exponential decay. And we can use this equation to analyze the discharge of a capacitor. And then the time constant for the decay is this, we can calculate it using this equation. And also we talk about the like the charge of the capacitor. Yeah, for the charge of capacitor, the time constant is the same thing, and the current is the same thing. And but here the velocity is different. Do you remember that? Yeah. Let me write down the equation for you here. I think I just forgot it here. Yeah, this is the equation for like charging, like a delta VC equal EMF. Also, we can write it delta VC0 and multiple 1 minus E negative TRC. Yeah, this is for the charging, and this is discharging, and for the charging and like a velocity for the capacitor will just like this like this. Yeah. If you review what we have already talked about. Okay. Yeah. And also we talk about the electricity in the nervous system. Yeah, cells in the nervous system maintain a negative potential inside the cell membrane. When triggered, the membrane depolarizes and generates an action potential. Yeah, an action potential travels as a wave along the axon of a neuron. More rapid saltatory conduction can be achieved by insulating the electron with myelin, causing the action potential to jump from node to node. Yeah, like we just talked about that. Yeah, this is very very important application. Just that you know how our body works, how our body signals works. Yeah. Okay, this is what we talk about in this class, and yeah, in this chapter, we mainly talk about the circuits, different circuits, and different features, characters for the circuits, and yeah, thank you. Okay, we will see you now tomorrow. See you next week, and hope you can finish all the homework, all the labs. Yeah, we will have the exam 4 on next Monday. Yeah, don't forget that. And I will also send you a reminder for that. Okay, see you. Bye.